Welcome to the Augmentation of Man with Kent and Renee Miller, where we are giving the future.
And we're going to be discussing today something quite important, where the crossover has begun.
So we are going to go into the detail of how and what this crossover is. And that was one thing we wanted to address, is why we've been gone so long. We have gotten information about the crossover, and it's been included in both A Study in Renaissance and The Acquiescence of Humanity. But we have gotten new information that required our studying all the notes that we have had from the messages that we received from our spiritual guides, the ancients, over the years, that Kent, when he is in a trance, is able to hear this communication in his head. But however, recently, we have gotten new information to clarify and to correct some of our thinking. And that required our assimilation of that, but also asking more questions. So it's been a journey of Kent having to go into meditation and asking more questions.
And the meditation has been sparse. I have not been able to get into meditation for about 3 or 4 weeks, I guess. Deep meditation. And just very recently have gotten into a deeper meditation, which gave us these answers.
So what we're going to do is talk about what this is, and then we're going to, we've got some drawings that will help to, I think, bring that visual aspect for clarification for people. And so what this is an outside particle field. It's like a nebulous. It's a particle field that's entering into our galaxy. It may be beyond our galaxy, but we don't know that, right?
Well, yeah, we don't know. Right now, we're just talking about how it's going to affect this solar system, basically. And what it's going to do to Earth in specific terms.
Yes, so we're going to concentrate on our neck of the woods. So this outside particle field is entering our galaxy, it's entering our solar system, and with it, it is bringing change at the subatomic level to the gaseous atmosphere surrounding Earth and all planets, all spheres throughout the galaxy.
Yeah, and it's important that we understand that the Earth is surrounded, anything above the surface is all the way up to space itself, is surrounded by a gaseous atmosphere. And this atmosphere is going to begin to change.
And that's going to have a rippling effect and change a lot of things. And this isn't the only thing that's going on. We're being hit by a number of different energies and things that are happening that are meant to diametrically change our paradigm here on Earth.
When the atmosphere, the gaseous atmosphere changes, the vibration changes of the Earth.
But so, let's start at the very beginning of this so we can kind of take it through steps.
Let's take the sequence of change in the atomic and subatomic levels.
Okay, so we have this particle field coming in. And what they're talking about is a fusion occurring. So the small particles are going to be absorbed up into the larger particles at the subatomic level. We're talking about like nanoparticles,
fusing,
right?
It's not being absorbed up, it's fusing together.
Right, through a process of fusion. And so that is going to create an increased density within the subatomic structure of the atoms that make up the gases within our atmosphere.
So with that, it'll change the geometry.
So anytime
of the gases themselves.
Yeah, and so anytime you change the gas, the
geometry.
geometry or the makeup
changes
of the subatomic structure, it changes
The vibration, it changes the vibration of the gases.
okay, and so we have a change in density, we have a change in the geometry, we have a change in the vibration.
So the changes in the vibration will reflect in the whole sphere.
So there is a direct correlation between vibration and learning and understanding.
Well, yeah, but you have to understand, Earth lives under this vibration. It picks up this vibration, and it'll change the structure of Earth. What it could be the land masses, could be the cores, it could be, it'll change the vibration of the Earth.
This changes the grid. So the grid is the template that's formed out of the gaseous makeup that surrounds the Earth.
Okay.
Yeah, the geometry is changed, the grid is changed, and this template for how life forms are, I say behave, but I'm talking about behavior on a level of the atomic behavior, how matter behaves, how it expresses itself, how it interacts with other things.
That will reflect on the form of life, organic life that is here, because we also live by the vibration of the atmosphere, the geometric vibration. So I don't know what humankind will come to look like. Maybe not a huge change at all, but minor changes.
We have been told that we're going to change intellectually to a higher neurological expression and a higher neurochemical expression, which will enable us to process information within our brains much more efficiently at a much higher level. So when we talk about the Earth's vibration, this was the correction that I had in my own understanding. I don't know about you, Kent, but I thought that it was the vibration of each molecule and the mass combined that makes up the planet that exudes a vibration. And that was incorrect.
Okay, they told me from the very onset of my meditation that simplicity is the key to understanding. And I had to explain to Renee how this works. And it's very, very simple when you understand it. And it's a process from the beginning of these particles that come into our solar system down to the changing or the transformation of humanity. And so it's all a process. One part of the process has to happen before the other. You can't incorporate them all at once. You can't put G in front of it. C.
They did say that each step had to be completed before the next step occurred. And so what I was getting at was that it's not the vibration that occurs within the mass of Earth or any other planet that it is projected outward into the atmosphere. It's the opposite of that. So it is the gaseous makeup of a planet forms the template for how life forms behave, how they interact at the molecular level. And so that is projected downward from the atmosphere and penetrates the Earth and creates the vibration in and around Earth.
And when the new species begins to form, it's called transformation, then the new cycle begins. We have that on a drawing that Renee did.
So this brings Earth and her inhabitants up to a level that is equal to other planetary spheres in the universe. Not all, some of them. So it's going to raise the vibration. It's going to raise the bar for the learning field. And we're going to be pushed into a higher intellectual being. So as this occurs, then we're going to start having more communication with beings from outside of Earth, right? So we're going to share the screen here. And this is Earth. This is the current gaseous atmosphere. And then this yellow here is the outside particle disturbance that is coming into the galaxy.
It's coming into Earth now.
And it's starting to penetrate, or it will be shortly penetrating Earth's atmosphere, interacting with the gases that are here and the atomic structure of the gases, fusing smaller particles with larger ones within the atmosphere, increasing the subatomic density of the gases surrounding Earth.
Showing the fusion underneath when the two particles fuse together. One does not go inside the other, they fuse together. And this is going to change, this seeing geometric figures is going to change somewhat from the geometric figure that it now is under into a new type of geometric figure, which increases the density, not to a heavy degree where you can't move here on Earth, but to a slight degree, but it will become a little more dense.
And the geometry changes. So we don't know how that geometry looks. This is just a metaphor that shows like this is the current geometry that's within the gaseous atmosphere surrounding Earth, and it changes to something different. Okay. And so now we're going to move into the next phase. So the geometry of the gases creates the vibration, which penetrates the planet and creates the planet's vibration. This is what creates the planet's vibration and determines how life forms behave on a planet.
When she says behave, it doesn't mean that behavioral of animals or mankind. Behavioral means the DNA change, possibly.
How atomically something
Structure
works, how DNA is expressed, those sort of things at the molecular level. Okay, we're not talking about my bad behavior. Okay, and so here we have a gaseous atmosphere that's being fused with a new gaseous atmosphere and a particle fusion that's occurring here. And this smaller particle is being absorbed into the larger particle through fusion.
Being absorbed, it's being fused together.
And then this is going to affect our physical bodies eventually. And in that, it will help to enable us to become smarter beings. And then
hopefully
that will help.
Right now, we look outside and we look at everything. The humankind has not become smarter at all.
We're seeing a degradation of society for sure, but we're looking into the future now. This is what will be occurring now in the near future. And this crossover event, they told us, takes 8 months to a year
to really get into the middle of the crossover.
And so it's going to be further out because all of this is steps in the process leading to the ultimate goal of a higher intellectual being that will be able to communicate telepathically, but also that we will understand how to work with the earth and live on this planet in synchronicity with earth.
You can see how this all plays out. So outside particle disturbance is coming in. It's been a long time coming. Particle movement creates its own electromagnetic field.
Any particles that move
All
create an
particles,
electrical and magnetic field, all
Which will-
charged
yeah,
particles.
so which will eventually change the magnetic field of the earth. So,
To some degree,
to
right?
some
And
degree, yeah, because there are different various things that are on play that will change the electromagnetic field of Earth.
Mhm.
What the sun does, the particles are different things that play into this. So the particle field interacts with Earth's magnetic field, creating a particular type of variance. And the variance means it can go in any direction. Okay.
it's not a total and complete change.
No.
It's a small change that creates a variance to how the Earth's electromagnetic
Yeah.
field is working.
Now, even though the magnetic field is becoming weaker here on Earth, and science attests to that, over on one side, it becomes weaker, and as it finds its new place to settle, it becomes stronger. So you never get down to zero on the existing field, but it will become weaker, and the new field will become stronger. But there's a difference between the two, which creates that open field, which many things can happen. But it's not strong, it's not weak. Means that
But they did say that as this particle field was coming in, and it carries with it at least a mild electromagnetic field that's interacting with Earth's normal magnetic field,
it
it
triggers.
creates this variance, but it also causes Earth's magnetic field to weaken even more,
Yeah.
yet it doesn't go
But
to
when
zero.
it settles, the new field will become stronger.
Right.
Yeah, so the magnetic poles, the shifting of the poles, which is ongoing right now. The shifting of the poles, once it's determined where the pole is going to be, then the axis of the Earth will begin to change to the poles. And with that will be an orbital change. And the orbital change is like, you can see the existing blue line.
Right here,
now
the circle here,
is now the
Earth's
way
current
Earth's current-
orbit.
and the red line approximately will be Earth's new orbit. It'll change slightly. So the seasons probably will change. Winter might be a little longer, summer might be a little longer, and spring and fall will be shorter.
So it's not going to be completely round. It's going to be more
oblong in a way.
oblong. To what degree, we don't know, but they did say that it was going to come in closer to the
Yeah.
sun and be more elongated.
Now, will all the planets in the solar system change? Yes, this will reflect on all planets. So there's a balance within our solar system. Planets don't run into each other, in other words.
Right. And so the geometric makeup of the atmosphere determines a lot of things, and we'll get into that a little bit more here.
This is exciting in a way to be alive when all these things are happening. It's really kind of interesting, to say the least. So with that, the incoming particle field increases solar activity. We're seeing a higher amount of sunspots, CMEs, which actually will reflect upon the Earth. And what happens when we get higher sun activity? And particles coming in, will have more volcanic activity, more earthquakes, it's actually changing the structure somewhat of Earth itself.
So you can see here, here's the sun. We see more sunspots. There's an increase in solar activity, and that's projected toward Earth, and that will increase earthquakes, and it'll increase our volcanic activity.
Because then the Earth is beginning to go through a vibrational change.
And it also affects this vibrational change. We've tried to give these diagrams because these are not easy concepts to understand. And let's see, no. So one more. So we're seeing the fusion of particles causes a particle enumeration. So it gets down to mathematics. That's where the geometry fits in. So when you change the geometry, the mathematical codes have been changed. And the mathematical codes are changed because you have a particle infusion where you have the smaller particle fusing with a larger particle, and the structure changes. So that's creating this atmospheric vibrational change that is affecting the sphere. So it changes the whole vibration of Earth,
right,
and how all matter behaves.
Right. And so as it changes other spheres in our solar system, I don't know what they're going to become like, but it's going to be interesting.
They did say that the magnetic poles of each sphere will shift.
Will shift, yeah.
And we don't know if that's, in what direction it'll shift. It's going to change to some degree.
Their orbital pattern will change somewhat too.
And their orbital pattern.
So,
and very well, they could have an axis shift also, as well as Earth.
Yeah, Earth is definitely going to have an axis shift when all this part is done, this process. And an axis shift, that's where we talked about the waters will come over most of the Earth, and basically it'll balance the new Earth.
Yeah, and so when the axis shifts, the shifting water helps to create this stabilization and balance on Earth. Now, they did say that this is necessary, all this is necessary to create balance, and it has to be done. It's a natural occurrence that has to be done every so often to bring about balance. And that's not only here on Earth, but it is throughout the universe. And so when you talk about shifting orbits throughout the galaxy, that's going to change the way, when we look up at the sky, it's going to look at least somewhat different.
It's going to become a new heaven and new Earth, because we're going to be knowing our
message.
Constellations will change as we look up in the sky.
Yes, and a new Earth is, we're going to be at a new vibrational level with a new learning field. And so what our guides have said is that we are immersed in this field, and it's a field, an experiential learning field, where everything that takes place here is for us to look at and to learn from. So from the smallest of events to the largest and out into the sky. And this is going to bring Earth and her inhabitants up to a higher level of learning, understanding, expression, and enable us to be able to communicate with higher intellectual beings. Otherwise, we may not be able to understand. Right. Not with all beings.
Our next step.
There's various levels of intellectual capacity. And so we're going to be closer to some of the other beings out there where with our intellectual
we can exchange ideas to the next level.
Right. And so the shift in density of subatomic gases triggers the shift in the magnetic poles, the axis, the orbit. All of this is going to be occurring over, I would expect, the next year.
Well, take approximately 8 months to 1 year to reach the center of this crossover, and then how long it takes to go down the other side, probably about the same.
In reality, we
Yeah,
really
so
don't
about
know,
2
but
years,
they did say
approximately.
it will take 8 months to a year
Yeah,
to pass through this what they call the crossover. So again, steps in the process, and it doesn't happen all at once. It's compartmentalized. So one step has to be completed before the next step is initiated. This brings balance throughout the galaxy, raises the intellectual bar for all species. We will see some species on Earth, a lot of species perhaps, go extinct, while new species will be evolved
yeah,
that will be a vibrational fit to this new vibration that Earth will hold.
yeah. And Earth's orbit now will become slightly closer to the sun. Like I said, it'll probably be a little longer winters, a little longer summers. Fall and spring will be a little shorter. So with that we can adapt.
They have told us, though, that genetically we're going to be adapted to a warmer climate, and that all ice caps are going to melt. So we're talking about probably the poles, because if you have an axis shift, those poles are going to move,
right,
and they're not going to be in the same area where you're going to have the same climactic.
Right. Well, some
region.
lands that are too flat will be underwater, and new lands will rise up out of the
Mhm.
ocean with the change causing volcanic activity under the ocean. It will bring up new mountains, new lands.
Right, and we're seeing that already.
Yes.
So lots of volcanic
Yeah,
activity
yeah,
going on
right.
right now, and they said that the earthquake activity, which is there, but we're expecting it to ramp up even more so,
Yeah, and so
and that will follow the
Yeah,
volcanic
you're seeing
activity.
new lands already trying to come up out of the ocean, just the beginning.
And so it is a little bit complicated. We've tried to make it simpler, and you may have to view this a couple of times. And of course, you can, if you have a copy of the books, the Augmentation of Man series, A Study in Renaissance, and the Acquiescence of Humanity, the crossover is discussed in both books, but we have received new information that we're adding in this video.
So this crossover is extremely important in the relationship of humanity becoming to the point of understanding other things outside of our own sphere. We look forward to going through this with those that want to go through it. It's going to be, in our terms, not an easy time.
It's going to be a very tumultuous time because we have other things going on as well.
Yeah, we
All
have,
the chaos of humanity is added into that.
right, we have been here in the United States, we've had it pretty easy. Places around the world haven't had it near as easy, and they may survive quicker than those that have had it so easy. This is going to be seen. I mean, it is what it is. So understand what's going on. When you understand the happening and what's going on, you're more prepared for it and not caught by surprise. If it doesn't happen right away, you're still prepared for it when it does come.
And we would recommend that you move away from coastal areas. The West Coast, not just coastal areas, that's going to be affected, far inland. So
And the East Coast also.
The East Coast is going to be affected inland to some degree, but not as much as the West Coast.
So with that, we'd like to say thanks for joining us. Hopefully you understand.
Peace be with you on your journey to enlightenment. Thank you for joining us, and leave us a comment and share. Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.